Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the Village New Glarus Board meeting to order. Lynn, would you please do the roll call?
Sure. Roger Trutman,
Here.
Chuck Phillipson,
Here.
Mike Ganchert,
Here.
Tammy Newberry,
I'm here.
Michael Bell,
Present.
Peggy Cruz. Peggy,
Not present.
okay, and Lori Wertz.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. I look for an approval of the agenda.
So move.
This is Chuck.
Mike?
Okay, so Mike Ganchard moved to approve. Do we have a second?
That's Chuck.
Lori Wertz will second it.
Whatever. Fuck.
Did you get that, Lynn?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Chuck had a question or,
No, I was just seconding.
okay, got it.
Okay, item 3, public appearances and citizens' comments. Is there anyone listening in that would like to comment? Hearing none, I'd move on to item 4, approval of the consent agenda.
I would move for the consent agenda, items A through F.
This is Chuck. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, Public Works, Public Safety Committee. Item A, discussion, consideration, Falcon Drilling and Blasting, Inc. for a blast permit for Perry House Pool Project. Drake, you want to comment on that a little?
Sure. The application is included in your packet. The permit would be active. It says 7/2, but obviously it wouldn't be. It should be say 7/22 to 8/21. The village engineer has reviewed the application and recommends approval. They ran into some difficult rock when they were, I believe it's for their sewer infrastructure that they're putting in.
So this is a second request for a blasting because we approved one earlier this year, correct?
Correct, and they never did end up blasting, to my knowledge. So
Okay.
that one expired. That one expired, which necessitated another application.
And you said that the village engineer did not have concerns about this, or?
Nope, he recommended, he signed off on it.
I spoke with some people the last time that we brought this up, and they expressed concern about knowing like the day that they were going to blast. Just as I understand that there's a siren that goes off, but some people would require some time to secure fragile equipment in case of the shaking, the after shaking from the explosions could damage some of their personal property. Is there a way, that we can express to citizens, hey, it's this explosion is going to happen on this day, or do we just keep it as a open month-long thing?
I can certainly express to them to try and let the village know when it's going to occur, and we could put it on a Facebook page. But beyond that, it may be that they blast as needed, so it may not be, scheduled. I guess the short answer is I'm not sure how feasible that is. I can certainly ask them to do that.
So as it stands now, there's a window that they're asking for of time like we gave them before, and that expired, and now they're asking for another window of time where blasting may be necessary. And what Michael is asking is if we could have more narrow timeline, and that doesn't really sound like that's real possible.
It may be, I'll make the request to them. I don't know what I guess I just don't know their construction schedule and whether they are blasting only as needed or if they actually have a set time or area, or, knowing exactly when they're gonna have to blast instead of, chip or dig or the other options that they use to clear the rock away. But I can certainly make the request that they try and let us know. If they know one day they are going to be blasting, that they can let us know and we can advertise it as best we can.
Okay.
They are limited, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. so that blasting won't occur outside of those hours during the day.
Correct.
Answered
And
mine.
I will go,
Kevin Hopkins, do you have anything further to add to that?
He probably doesn't have, he might, but.
I mean, typically they're drilling to the blast holes. I think they could tell you within a couple of days when they're going to be doing the work, but like Drake said, it certainly doesn't hurt to ask. They should know the areas where they have to drill and blast.
Anymore, that's all.
I would like to go ahead and make a motion then to approve.
I had a question.
Okay.
A motion's been made, so first we need a second, and then more discussion can take place.
Answered
Can I
Mike,
finish?
second that.
Can I? Okay.
So who made the motion?
Tammy made the motion, but I also wanted to say that where we would also try to give the public as much notification as possible that we're going to occur. If I could finish that on my motion.
Okay, Drake will take care of that. Then who seconded? Okay, Mike. Okay, Lori, you had a question?
I did. I was wondering if the drill company could send out a letter letting people know the time frame, like, July, whatever, to August, whatever, to be anticipating this blast. I live right next door.
I guess their openness to that may be depending on who the board is wishing them to notify.
Well, they did send a letter earlier in the winter to some of the residents that live close by. That I'm aware of, and I just would like to see them do that again so that people aren't caught off guard or surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I would think they would have. I would think they would have a list of the ones they sent it to before, and they could probably just resend another letter
I would think so, yeah.
if we request them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
This is Jeff from the police department. When they do that too, if they could contact the police department or somebody could let us know so we know what's going on, because our phones may ring, and then we can also advise the sheriff's department as well.
We will do our best to get them to give us as much notice as possible.
Yeah, and I don't care if it's 5 minutes or an hour, just so we know, so when the big boom goes off and our phones start ringing, we can, tell people immediately it was, the people blasting over there and it wasn't somebody letting off a bomb or shooting a gun or whatever. That's all I'm asking.
Sure.
Okay, Jeff. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consideration discussion, application for street permit for 8820 by American Legion Post 141.
The American Legion is hosting an event at their hall on August 8th and have submitted a street use permit for the closure of 12th Avenue from 2nd Street to 4th Street. The closure is strictly for motorcycle parking and groups will not be gathering in the closed area. The Legion anticipates arrivals to begin at 11:30 a.m. Attendees will eat lunch and will depart around 1 p.m. Legion indicated they would attempt to keep one lane of traffic open as possible. The event will be primarily for Iraq War veterans. The Public Works and Public Safety Committee recommended approval of the permit for the closure of the street to be used for motorcycle parking.
Gansert, Mike here, would like to make the motion to, for the street permit to be okay.
Michael Bell will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is Chuck Phillipson. I just want to interject. I'm not going to vote on this because I'm a member of the Legion and it's probably a conflict, but we have two of these items on the agenda tonight, and I don't object to either one, but I'm just curious, when these things come up, do we, prior to bringing this permit to the board, do we check with the neighbors if there's any possible consequences of problems for these things, if people could not get out of their driveways in a emergency situation or whatever? And I'm, like I say, I'm not objecting to any of this. I just think we need to think a little bit further ahead on these things.
During their review for the American Legion post, Chief Boldebuck included an addendum, which is included in the draft permit, that the sponsoring organization is responsible for notifying property owners within the area to be closed and to provide information regarding the closure.
Is this before or after the permit? Is it?
They would be required to notify after the permit's been issued.
Okay, well, that's my point. I think for future consideration, we may want to require that people be notified before, just in case. It could put a hardship on somebody. I've seen it happen before. So I'm just bringing that up as a matter of course.
Gansert, Mike here. I've got a question with regards to time. 11:30 to 1 o'clock, did you say?
Yes.
And in the street permit use, I see that it's 9 a.m. to 3 o'clock.
In the notes, that's just when people should be anticipating the traffic to be going on, but we do bring out the barricades and close off the street for a longer period of time than that, just to allow for preparation so that people realize that the street is closed at that time, and then also to allow for removal of the barricades and to make sure that that there's adequate time for departure.
Okay, that's fine.
We have a motion in a second, I forgot it.
Lynn, was there a motion in a second?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Chuck, you're gonna abstain?
Yes.
Okay. Item C, consideration discussion application for street use permit 8/1/2020 by the New Glarus Fire Department.
The New Glarus Fire Department's requesting a closure of 4th Avenue from 2nd Street to 5th Street. Cars will be parking in a staging area west of the EMS entrance on 4th Avenue to 5th Street and picking up their dinner in front of the station. This permit is to accommodate the drive-through pickup of the
Culverwurst dinner.
Dinner.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the street use permit.
Gansert, Mike, I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, this is Chuck again, and just to reiterate, I have no objection to this, but I think for future reference, when these permits are applied for, it would be nice if the applicants would say, you know, we've checked with the neighbors and there shouldn't be any problems with egress or ingress for any possible emergency or other situations. That's never been done before. I know it's just been, well, we'll close the street. You'll know about it when we put the barricades up. So like I say, I'm not objecting to this. I just think this should be part of our permitting process, that just in case, you know, there could be somebody in serious health conditions and their street's blocked, and who knows what's going to happen. Who knows what the protocol will be. I know the fire department is going to handle this in the best way possible, but I just want this noted for future action. That's all I got to say.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, consideration discussion wastewater utility rate increase.
You'll recall a few months back, the board authorized staff to move forward with conducting of a rate study for the wastewater utility. Strand & Associates has completed their review of the wastewater utility rates. Their recommended net change for a typical residential user is approximately 33% per month, or $18 per month. This equates to an annual increase of $216. The wastewater rates have not been increased in 12 years, since 2008. The utility's rate/revenue will be an important factor in borrowing for future utility projects. Strand Engineering is present to answer any questions. The setting of these rates and the implementation date of the rate changes is at the discretion of the board. These rates are not regulated by the PSC. The board will need to host a public hearing and approve an ordinance reflecting the new rates at a future meeting. August 18th is the earliest a public hearing could be scheduled. So what we're looking for tonight is for the board to determine an implementation plan for the rate increase, or of course it's your prerogative also not to increase the rates as well. Kevin Hopkins with Strand is here and available for questions if you have any. Obviously their recommended rates, they're telling us that they are, you know, needed soon now. They're saying that this is where they should be at, but the board can implement it as they see fit. So their recommendation is to implement it as soon as possible, but again, up to the board. Kevin, do you have anything to add?
Not really. I mean, he pretty much summed it up, Drake. Again, it's been 12 years since the rates were increased. It's a pretty long run. So.
I think it's highly unfortunate that that this is the time in which we have to make a decision to make a jump. I mean, 12 years was a long time to wait to have it come out in a year where everyone's somewhat financially insecure, I think, with what's coming. But then also in knowing that we all want to continue having water and sewer and all of our utilities. I just, you know, mentioning that it's a difficult time to have to make this decision, but I think it's a decision that we need to get to.
is Kevin there?
Mhm.
Could we possibly hold off till the first of the year, Kevin? Or do we need to do this absolutely right away?
Well, we would probably want to make some changes in terms of the revenue projections. Some of it is based on CIP improvements or capital improvements projects. The study that we did, I mean, we started this back in late winter, early spring, or late winter, and it was done with the assumption that the rates would be adopted sometime this summer.
Okay.
So, you know, I guess I'm going to throw that question back to the village a little bit because it kind of depends on how the books are looking right now.
So this is Chuck. Worst case scenario, what if we wouldn't approve this right now? What are the consequences?
I guess worst case scenario eventually is that as we need to do utility capital improvement projects, whether that's in a street or obviously in the future we'll have a plant upgrade to meet phosphorus requirements, which will undoubtedly require another rate increase at that a few years down the road, is that lenders will refuse to lend money to the utility on a revenue basis, and the village would be forced to utilize its general obligation debt capacity to fund wastewater projects, which would limit the village's ability to do non-utility projects that the GO capacity would typically be used for.
Right, so you're saying utility income would adversely affect our ability to borrow money at a lower rate.
It would adversely affect our ability to borrow on a revenue basis. It would certainly affect our rates, or get to the point where someone wouldn't lend to us on a revenue basis. Revenue basis just means that it doesn't affect our general obligation debt capacity that is mandated, that is set by the state based on our equalized value. The utility revenue debt is not a part of that. So it's called a debt coverage ratio. So as that ratio becomes less and less appealing, the ability to borrow becomes more expensive to borrow, and then becomes less and less appealing to people who want to buy the revenue bonds.
Right, and so any reserves we might have, and I don't know what they might be, wouldn't have any effect on this?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Any reserves we might have in the utilities bank, so to speak, don't have any effect on it. I mean, I know we must have some reserves in the various public utilities funds.
Yes, I'm not under the impression that we're at a point where we would have to, if we didn't raise our rates, that we would have to draw down on a surplus account to cover the operational expenses. Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, but I'm just asking if our reserve accounts would have any effect on borrowing, as far as the availability of lenders to borrow us, to loan us.
Mm-hmm.
Drake,
I would imagine. Oh, I'm sorry.
this is Lynn. Can I interject there?
Sure.
I don't believe it would. A lot of the surplus funds, or what you're looking at, maybe funds that the wastewater utility holds, are set aside for a specific reason. We need to have certain accounts that are covering, future purchases like the plant upgrade, to be saving for that. Some are for the debt we currently have to make assurances that we will pay those back. So we have to look at the audit report to make sure that our fund balance, I believe it's gone down a little bit over the years. If that's what you're asking, I mean, it may appear that there's extra monies in the wastewater treatment plant, but most of those are designated for a purpose or have a reason for being held there.
That's exactly what I was asking, and thanks for a great answer.
You're welcome.
This is Lori Word.
Go ahead, Lori.
I had a question. I was wondering, is there something in place going forward that you do incremental increases instead of a big wallop?
Ideally, we wouldn't go 12 years without looking at the rates. And so there would be smaller increases every, 2 to 3 years instead of a large increase after, 12 years. A similar question was asked at the Public Works Public Safety Committee about tying it to an index or inflation, some sort of inflationary measure. And Kevin Hopkins from Strand had indicated that it's not something that you typically see, because you could, if say for example the wastewater utility didn't do projects for a number of years, there may not be a reason to raise the rates, but if it had been tied to something else, we would have been raising them anyway. Kevin, I don't know if you want to expand upon that at all, but that was my takeaway from the committee discussion.
Yeah, typically it's not necessarily tied to an index for inflation. I mean, oftentimes it's driven by projects that require the rates to be increased, and as Drake indicated, that's coming up soon for the phosphorus removal project. It's not unusual to step increase the rates, but and that's a possibility here. That's not what we looked at. We looked at just the revenue requirements and a single increase. And part of the thinking behind that, as difficult as it may be for the rate users or for the utility users to swallow, is again, you've gone 12 years without the increase. So if you look at it from, and I understand, the economic conditions, what they are. We also started this study when things weren't so bad too. So timing is everything, I guess. But.
Gansert, Mike here. I would like to make the motion under the guidelines that we may expect another increase with the phosphorus removal, and it's untimely that we have to do a rate increase now. But that being said, I would like to make a motion to for the utility rate increase for the wastewater treatment plant.
Mike, can I clarify that you're making a motion, essentially it would be for implementation on August 19th following the public hearing and adoption of the ordinance that we will draft with that schedule in place?
Yes, Drake, that's absolutely correct. Thank you.
This is Chuck. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to bring up the question here of a possibility where we could do a incremental increase, something like 25% of the total 33% increase that we need to do. So over the next 6 months instead of an immediate jump up, or something to that effect, where it's slowly building up to that full amount that we're looking to do, but not immediately at one point in time. My biggest concern once again is our citizens, how this is just kind of big out of the blue, and it's gonna hurt when it comes through. So to try and alleviate that a little bit, so they have a chance to try and get out into jobs and get some sort of income back in, as you know, before it all kind of hits them.
So Drake, it was my understanding then that in order to do an incremental, we would have to kind of go back to the drawing board and relook at that. Is that the problem with us saying, can we do, let's say 15% right away, and then maybe the other 15% on January 1? Is there a reason why we can't do it that way?
Kevin, is there a process for developing a stepped increase, beginning, you know, this summer and then continuing, and then another increase at the first of the year, for example?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to go through some exercises, or an exercise to come up with that, just in a formal way, I guess. It certainly can be done. It's not insurmountable.
This is
So I guess the answer is it can be done, Tammy.
Oh, sure. It can't. I'm sorry. It can be done. It's just not the way it was set up this time around.
How long would it take to get that to us? Like next board meeting, or just curious?
Well, we could probably turn it around fairly quick. It's a little bit out of the scope of the study that we've done. That's one concern I have.
well, at the end
When is the next board meeting?
at the end of the
next board
day,
meeting, I apologize, Chuck.
I'm sorry, at the end of the day, is it going to make any difference? Are we going to need monies at a certain point in time? So whether we approve it now or whether we approve it incrementally, is at the end of the day, at the end of the year, at the end of 2 years, is it going to make any difference to the pocketbooks of the taxpayers and the ratepayers of New Glarus? That's my question. I don't know. I'm just asking.
You know, and I wish I could answer that for you too, Chuck. I know, like with anything else, though, you know, if you're gonna have to pay $2 more for your coffee this week, knowing that, and you're gonna get that wake up call, and then if you know in 6 months you're gonna end up paying $4 more for your coffee, it might be a little easier transition. I'm not saying that I know or have a magic ball here either. I'm just saying that psychologically, I think possibly.
I understand. I think coffee's a bad analogy, but I don't pay more than 30 cents for a cup of coffee, but that's up to the individuals. I understand. No, I'm not, I totally understand the concern for the ratepayer. I just wonder if it would make a difference at the end of whatever period, 2 years or whatever. Is it all going to end up the same? And the reason I say that is it worth going through another procedure to come up with the same end result for the ratepayer?
Yeah, you do have a point there, where I feel like a lot of citizens are not involved in our discussions well enough. And I can definitely see how doing a stage or a tiered system would also backfire on the board, where they're like, you guys just raised the rates, why are you doing it again? You know, I can see both ends of the argument. I really can. I just wanted to entertain the idea and see what everyone else is thinking on it too.
Gansert, Mike here. I have a question for Kevin. This gradual rate study increase, this would be another study done by Strand and Associates, and would that be, would you be doing that study out of the goodness of your heart?
Don't put me on the spot, Mike. If it were up to me, I'd say yes, but it's not entirely up to me. I mean,
I understand.
we would do the work, and I don't know. I can't give you a number as far as how much time and effort and dollars it's going to cost for us to do that. I mean, we're at budget right now. We're at budget right now, so I'm working on my own dime right now for whatever it's worth. We certainly want to continue working for the village. Try to be fair with the village for sure.
Kevin and I understand that, but I also understand you're not a charitable organization, so I'm just assuming that there would be an added cost to that study.
The short answer is yes, but we'd certainly be fair with you, with the village. Yeah.
This is Roger. I think if we do it all at one time, it's going to sting for a month or two, but after that, I think sting is going to go away. I don't think we should be doing another study and incurring more costs. My opinion is to just do the rate increase and be done with it. And by now, you all know I'm retired on a fixed income myself, so I'll feel it with everybody.
Right. So I think, I mean, like as I think through this, I mean, we made this decision back before we had any idea there was going to be an economic kind of crisis at this time. We made the decision to do this in this way. The paperwork's done to be done in this way. You're correct. In the end, we're going to end up at the same place. It would be nice if we could have done it slower, but we kind of did because we haven't done anything in 12 years. So we'll just have to work through this together and take the motion that Mike has forward and go with it. So it's just everything I could think of.
This is Kevin. I just wanted to add, oftentimes, and this often happens at a public hearing, is, we'll compare these costs to a cable bill or a satellite dish bill or phone bill, and it's pretty reasonable, all things considered. So that may help ease the burden a little bit. For the amount of increase that we're looking at, or for the monthly costs, it's still pretty reasonable. The other thing that we can do is, compare the rates, proposed rates to other communities, just kind of as a benchmark for folks to see that they're not totally unreasonable.
I think that's always a good idea to have those kind of talking points ready, because I think people are going to notice and they're going to want an explanation for why. So as long as we have our reasoning, which I think we've discussed and do, we're prepared to go forward.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Somebody opposed. Motion carries. Item E, consideration discussion, pilot testing of cloth disc filtration system at wastewater treatment plant.
The wastewater treatment plant is continuing to proceed with steps to gain compliance with the DNR requirements for the removal treatment of phosphorus. Following completion of pilot testing and selection of the appropriate system, design would begin on the plant upgrade. The cost of the pilot testing is $18,900. The Public Works and Public Safety Committee did recommend approving of the pilot testing. Kevin Hopkins is here if you have questions regarding selection of the technology, the cloth disc filtration, or any other questions regarding the work that they'll be doing. Kevin, do you have anything that you'd like to add in?
Sure. So we submitted what's called the final compliance alternative plan last June 2019, and in the report that we sent to the DNR, we indicated that we looked at trading and with area landowners, farmers, and that wasn't really much of an option. A variance is not an alternative that the village can pursue. So what we looked at were some treatment technologies inside the treatment plant fence. And we looked at basically 4 alternatives. 2 were the lowest cost alternatives, basically a reactive sand filter that collects solids in the effluent and absorbs the phosphorus. And the other is disc filter technology. And that would be used in concert with chemical addition to knock down the phosphorus and then collect it on the filter. So the pilot testing would include testing 2 different manufacturers' disc filter technology to make sure that they can meet the 0.1 milligram per liter limit that's in your it's in your permit now, but it won't be in effect till 2024. So the pilot testing is just to check to make sure that it's to help with the design as far as design parameters, finalizing the size of the filter, and also any chemical addition requirements that we might have. The intent would be to do the pilot testing this fall and start design later this year, and then plans and specifications are due at the DNR June 30th, 2021.
So Kevin, just for clarification, you said that you eliminated one option that was sand-based and decided to test out 2 different discs. Is that correct?
No, the sand-based filter and the disc filters, the total present worth costs analysis that we did showed they are fairly close, like within about 5% or so. So our feeling is that we could look at either a disc filter or this reactive sand filter. The reactive sand filter has a more of a proven track record, so we don't feel the need to pilot test that. We feel that it could meet the limits, but with the disc filters, we put in a number of disc filters, but not necessarily to meet these stricter limits. So we just want to make sure that the manufacturers that we're looking at can meet those limits with chemical addition.
So I'm confused. If we're already satisfied that the sand filter will do what we want, why do we want to try the disc filters?
Because there is some capital cost savings with the disc filters. I mean, it's they're within about 5% or so, but it is a little less expensive than the sand filter.
But with the disc filter, you said we might have to add a chemical. With the sand filter, do we not have to add a chemical?
You have to add chemical to regenerate the sand filter. So you're still adding chemicals regardless of the filter technology that you're using.
Okay, I was just looking at like continual costs, like one might be cheaper up front, but if you have a continual cost of having to do an additive for one and not a continual cost of having to do an additive for the other, there's both.
So for just on a 20-year present worth basis, the sand filter, the reactive sand filter had a total present worth cost of $6.1 million. The disc filter, the one that we looked at, had a total present worth cost of $5.99 million. O&M costs on an annual basis, they're pretty close between the sand filter and the disc filter.
Okay.
The capital cost for the disc filter is a little bit higher, like about couple $100,000.
Okay, so the capital cost or the upfront cost for the disc filter is slightly more, and then the additive
Slightly less.
Slightly less. Okay, slightly less by a couple $100,000. Is that? And that, but the annual cost of both is fairly equal.
That's correct.
Okay, so you're asking us to test these out on a trial basis to see if they actually will do what we want, and then we can make the decision on whether or not we want to go with one or the other. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
And do you think we can get a little bit more information about those two in the interim then while you're testing?
Sure. Yeah, there is some information that was provided in the report we submitted.
Right.
We can put together some more information if you like.
I guess I would be looking at maybe like environmental impact, if there any difference between the two.
Not really. I mean, ultimately, you're meeting your strict phosphorus limit, so they both benefit the effluent quality on that regard. You're gonna create more sludge just from the backwashing of the filter. You know, as the filters get clogged up with solids, it has to be backwashed, and ultimately that'll end up in your sludge. So there's more sludge generated. It's biological as well as a chemical sludge, but you're adding chemical occasionally right now in your effluent just to meet limits when needed. This will just be more of a full-time permanent thing.
Okay.
Environmentally, I think they're very similar. I don't see any significant difference between the two technologies.
Okay. So then I would go ahead and make a motion to do the pilot testing of the cloth disc filtration system.
Gansert, Mike, I would second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, new business. A, update impact of COVID-19 on budget.
There's a memo that was included in your packet. It starts on page 54 of the packet. Lynn and I put this together. It's an overview of the revenues, expenses, the grant programs, and a little bit of speculation on the 2021 budget process. I can run through it, or if the board has reviewed it and wants to ask questions of me, we can go that route as well.
I did read through it and I'm comfortable with what was stated. Do we need to make motions or anything to that effect, or is this just a discussion time?
No, this is just from the request at the first meeting in July. Trustee Gamshirt and Trustee Phillipson had asked for a more specific review of expenses and revenues and just impact in general on the budget to go over related to COVID-19.
Yeah, I'm happy with what you did.
Answered Mike here, likewise.
I did find it beneficial, though. Thank you very much for taking that time to do that.
Okay, moving right along.
Okay. Item B, discussion consideration extension of resolution 2010 to 12/31/20.
This is the resolution that instills certain authorities into me in the event that I have to take swift action in response to the ongoing pandemic. The board has extended it once. This is a request to extend it through the end of the year, as it looks like this situation will be ongoing.
This is Lori. I'd make a motion to extend it to December.
This is Chuck. I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just to clarify, is that to the beginning of December or through the end of December?
Through the end of the year.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. President's report. Referral from trustee, consideration discussion, Village Park Basketball Court COVID-19 policy.
This
Mr.
is,
Ganser?
Yes, this is Gansert Mike, and I asked for the reconsideration of the Village Park basketball court being open. As most of you or all of you know, that Wisconsin and the entire country is in an uptick of COVID-19. I know that Yodel Club here in New Glarus is canceling all the programs for this summer because of that. I know that Cow and Quince opened for a while and now they're closed. I know that Baumgartner's down in Monroe was open for a while. They are closed for all of the inside, but they keep the outside open. Now you can walk in there and order something and then leave, take it to go out or eat it outside. The Department of Health Services show Wisconsin topped over 1,000 new COVID-19 cases in a single day. Bay Gate High School, there will be no fall sports inside the conference. And I know that there are, I have a nephew that's in the industry, and the flight plans have dropped tremendously. As a matter of fact, he told me today that if you were traveling to London, you would have to be put into a 14-day quarantine before you could do anything. And that is the case for 14 of the 50 states here in the United States, and we're one of them. We're one of those 14 states. So it deeply concerns me about what we're putting our our young people through. And on top of that, I get the uncomfortable feeling, why are we going through these telephone conferences ourselves, and yet we send our kids out into a contact sport, and they are not, as I didn't expect them to, they are not using a 6-foot rate of separation. I'm deeply concerned for their health And I understand that the other two programs that we opened up, the pool and the baseball, but they have adult supervision there. The basketball courts does not.
Mike, I understand. Go ahead. Please finish. I understand what your concerns are. I think, obviously, we've all seen the increase, and obviously we've seen that. And obviously we've probably seen the basketball courts, and I would agree that it's unfortunate that we really don't have adult supervision in that case, where we do, like you said, with the pool and with the baseball things. I'm just not sure the young people that are playing there, we're not telling them to play there, and we're not telling them to play together. We're actually informing them that they shouldn't, but they're arriving there in the same cars. They're hanging out together everywhere else. I don't know how us closing that court is going to change that behavior. They're going to hang out somewhere else. I understand what you're saying. Well, then, but we wouldn't have that court open, but we really don't, because we say, please, mind these rules. I don't understand how we can close it, and how are we going to maintain that, or how are we going to maintain keeping it closed?
Well, to answer your question, we can close it. We can take the hoops down, and that would end that. Well, there is a way.
Well, just to back up what Mike was talking about, and I'm at the point where I'm about ready to say it's just every man for himself. But we have the rules in place for softball and baseball, and there's that 5, 10, 15% of the people who just say, well, I'm not going to follow that. And, you have signs on the dugouts at the ballpark that say dugouts closed. Well, they're still using them. And who's using them? Who did I find using them? Coaches. We have fan seating areas. And yet, the fans just going to sit. They're just going to sit where the players are supposed to be to separate themselves, because they can't go in the dugouts. So this whole thing is just basically an unenforceable mess. And like I say, as the chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, I'm at the point to just say, you know what, let the chips fall where they may. We're going to have the self-centered, selfish people that are ignoring these situations and saying, oh, hell, COVID's not going to bother me, or I'm young, I'm not going to get sick. And then we're going to have the other people who say, geez, I'd rather not get sick. I'm 73 years old. I'm not ready to kick off yet. It's not just here. It's nationwide. Frankly, it's worldwide. So I think I agree with Mike that we probably should close the basketball court, but I think we may just as well leave up the warning signs and let the chips fall where they may, because I'm afraid that's where they're going to fall anyway. I don't know. People are still going to hang out. People are going to do what they're going to do. People are going to, there's that segment of the population that's just going to say, me first. That's how I grew up, me first. And we can't stop that. I think this village has done more than anybody around here to try and protect the health and safety of our residents than anyone around here. But unless we're going to enter into a police state, I don't know where we go.
And that's what my thing is, Chuck, is I don't like some of the behaviors that I see, but I think we've given the public the knowledge that they're not making a good choice and they're going to make it anyway. And I'm not, we tried closing the basketball court. It didn't work well. I get that we could take more drastic action, but what would be the rebound of that? And so I agree that I don't know, Mike, how we can change the behavior of people when we've given them the warnings. They're going to make those choices.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Tammy, and Chuck, I understand what you're saying. It's just that I take it personal, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt over this decision. And maybe that's what it's going to take for us all to open our eyes. Unfortunately, I pray to God every night that that never happens.
I think we're all thinking that way, Mike. And I like I say, I agree with you completely, but I just don't see where closing the courts, you know, we can pull the hoops down, but I don't know what's going to happen. And then would people just say, well, hey, they pulled the hoops down, let's go hang out over there, whatever. There's this rebellious attitude that certain people have. And there's certainly a defiant attitude that I've run into with coaches from our various programs who just start screaming, well, you must hate the kids in New Glarus and all this, you know. I don't know how, that's just their self-centered little selfish world, but I don't know how we overcome that. I think our best course of action would be to probably put up more, replace our signage at the basketball court, our warning signage, and hope for the best. I understand exactly what you're saying, Mike. I've seen groups of kids, you know, I know they're not from the same household, playing head-on sports, you know, and you know, playing basketball, you're going to be huffing and puffing and spitting and the whole 9 yards. But I just don't know how we stop that congregation of people without causing further problems, of course. So I don't know.
Well, I was going to make a motion, and I'm not going to do that now because I'm afraid I would just get so much opposition. And I understand that. I do. And I'm not holding a grudge or anything. But I just, it bothers me. I haven't had any nightmares yet, and I don't want any.
So
I would like to just make a comment that this village isn't alone in this. I've been in other communities where I've seen young men and young ladies playing basketball too during all this. So we are not alone in this issue. So I think we just need to leave it go the way it's going right now and hope and pray for the best.
We're providing them with the right education, Mike. We're posting the signs. We're asking them to maintain social distance. We're asking them to do that. We would have to police that, and I don't know how we would police that.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Tammy. Yeah, it's hard to do. It would be virtually almost impossible to do.
Right.
We need to.
And that's why I looked at the possibility of closing it down, but I'm not going to make that motion because I feel that it would get knocked out of the ballpark.
Pardon me?
And Roger, I understand that you've seen it in other communities, but I don't live in other communities. I live here in New Glarus.
Good point. Good point, Mike.
Well, if there's not going to be a motion on this subject, then we can move on.
Yes.
Okay. Item B, discussion consideration committee appointments. I'm going to put Lori Wertz on community development, and Mr. Ganser will be off that committee. I got it right here. And Tammy is going to take the position on the library board. And again, Tammy, thank you very much for doing that for us. And in order to make that work, I am going to put myself on Parks and Rec Committee. So we need a motion to approve those changes.
I would so move.
Second, this is Chuck.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Lori, I want to say one thing to you. I don't know if you're aware, but there's a box in the boardroom that is accumulating all kinds of information for you in there. So would you mind picking it up, please?
Sure, I would do that.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Mhm.
Any further
Lori,
business?
You forgot to have a meeting with us, so you probably did not know about your box, did you?
No,
Okay, Lori. You have gotten a key though, haven't you?
I do, and I haven't tried it to see. I think Lynn said it might work hard, so I have to check that out.
Just so you know, mine doesn't work in the front door, so you try the back door.
Oh,
Okay.
mine is not working well in the front door either, so I think we need to get that checked out. Yeah, Lori, that'll open up the front door and then the key to the door to the boardroom. The same key will open those two doors for you.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Any further business? Hearing none, we are adjourned.